Hello, hello, hello. We are back again on the Got Value podcast. If you have been listening to us for any amount of time, you already know I am so committed to having conversations with high impact executives and leaders where we're trying to figure out how do we build and create lives that feel as good as they look. Because being a professional success but a personal mess is absolutely no way to live. So I am here today with Katrina McGhee. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. When I was doing my research about you and all the work that you've done, not only with the American Heart Association, but all the work that you've done to have this very conversation about how can we take better care of ourselves? How can we ensure that we are living lives that honor our needs and that nurture what aligns for us? I was just super excited when I was coming up with the questions. I was like, oh, yeah, this will be a good one.
Well, you've hit on my personal passion point, and so I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Yes, yes. So the only question that I ask every single guest who comes on the show, because I speak to a lot of multi hyphenate folks, and being multi hyphenate can be a gift and also can be a challenge in that wearing so many hats and flipping and flopping and twisting and turning between all the roles and things that we play, it can get really, really easy to get super caught up in all the things that we do. So, despite all of the things that you do, who is it that you say you are?
Honestly, Alicia, I'm just a girl who loves God and is committed to living out loud and on purpose. I just feel so blessed for the charmed life I have as a mom, a Gigi, I have a new grandbaby, an author, a speaker, and as the head of marketing comms for American Heart. I love my life, and I'm so grateful to live out my dreams every day.
Oh, and so see that I love my life piece. So growing up for me, things were extremely dark. And a lot of times my friends will be like, why are you so bubbly? And I'm like, because I know how dark it can get. So I adore every piece and part of my life now, even and including the challenges. And that came through going through a process of acknowledging, okay, what is it that I need? Or what does burnout look like and how does it manifest for me? And so, of course, burnout is absolutely one of the most widely discussed topics right now, especially coming off of a multi-year pandemic that took every single person, I do believe, on earth by surprise. But with so many factors that have led to burnout, it can kind of seem impossible to right the ship once you've kind of like crash and burned, for no better way to say it. But what do you think are some of the steps that we can take to better identify? A, when we're getting close to burning out, and then also, two, to honor our needs before we even get to that point.
Yes, absolutely. So let me first say I have personally experienced burnout. So when I talk about it from a lived experience perspective and also a person who's been a career coach for years. I talk
Mm.
to women especially about this all the time because, you know, we were sold this line about work life balance. You know, you have to have work life balance. How are you balancing things? And it finally hit me one day that there is no such thing as work life balance. But
Not
you
a
can be a
thing.
balanced human being if you live according to your priorities. And that may be the hardest thing we own for ourselves personally, but it really is the key to being a balanced human being that can then do amazing things. I was like going for it, girl. I was in an amazing career at an organization I was super passionate about, but I was trying to control everything else and lost control of me. And so I tell people now it is really important, to consistently check in with yourself, to not run past the red flags when you're using coffee to get up in the morning and Ambien to sleep at night, when you can
Mm.
barely have a full night's sleep. So you feel like you're in a fog during the day. Because burnout is caused by continual chronic stress. And we know that chronic stress impacts heart disease and your physicality. It leads to inflammation and a host of other things. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we really have to first listen to the messages that our body is telling us because it's always speaking. And then be mindful of what we feed ourselves. I just as a practical note, I start each day with gratitude. Lately, I've been ending each day with gratitude too, because in high stress times, sometimes I have to, before I get out of bed and before I go to sleep, kind of
Yeah.
really consciously think of what I'm grateful for, because the practice of gratitude is really revolutionary to your life. It's actually a lot of science behind it. People think it's frou
Yeah.
frou, and it's like doesn't make a big difference. But the truth is, just the practice of gratitude can reframe how you look at life.
I agree completely. One of the things that I always tell folks, especially when I'm coaching them, because I too am a coach, is I always ask them, how is it that you want your life to feel? And then I always say, is okay, so then if you're baking a strawberry lemon cake and you put orange peels in it, are you going to get the strawberry lemon cake that you were desiring? And the question has 100% of the time been, but you didn't add any strawberries. Exactly. How do you expect your life to feel good if you only ever focus on all the things that make you feel bad or that highlight and illuminate the things that are painful for you? I am not saying be toxically positive. I'm saying find something that you are grateful for, that you are thankful for, that has happened, that has made you smile, that has helped you to tap into joy, that felt really, really good for you. Find that and hold on to it. Remember it. I always tell people to name their joy.
Hmm.
My joy's name is Eddie, and I named it Eddie before I even looked up the definition of it. But Eddie, anytime I call on Eddie, because I have named it and I have put all these intense, immense memories and emotions behind it, I'm able to pull myself out of spaces that don't feel good for me by simply calling the name Eddie. And it sounds like you say woo woo for some people. And it's like, but if you want to get in the habit of being in control of your mind and what your body is doing, you can train it to do so. Just like we train children, you can
Hmm.
also train your mind at this big age. It's
Yes.
possible.
That's absolutely true. I tell people the hardest person you'll ever manage is yourself, because you judge other people on often their actions, but when you look at yourself, it's always your intentions, and very often you fall short because you know mentally what you intended to do. So you may have done eight amazing things, but those two things on your top 10 you didn't do. You go into this like self-flagellation, and you don't reflect, you ruminate. It's like a cow chewing cud over and over again, and you're feeding yourself this toxic degradation, which diminishes your self-worth, makes you question yourself, and puts you in a negative headspace. And I just don't believe that that is the way we are intended to live our lives. We all have divine gifts and talents, and when we courageously make decisions that are in our own best interest, which is how I personally define self-care, then we are more holistically healthy. So
Yeah.
often I see women, forget like we put ourselves at the end of the list. We've been saying that for years, but I see them stay stuck in situations that are not good for their spirit, their social connections, their physical health, and definitely not their mental well being, because they don't have the courage to say, this is not for me. And the truth is, it could be a good thing. Like it could be a good thing for somebody, but it's just not for you.
And
Um,
that's okay.
it is. It is totally okay. Like if you want to be a whole and healthy person, you have to courageously make those choices that say, here is where I am in this season of my life,
Mhm.
recognizing particularly as women that our lives ebb and flow with the seasons, and we have to check in regularly to say, is this still right for me right now?
Yes. Listen, first of all, I feel like I am in a whole life coaching session. So thank you for this. You have no idea. I'm going to go before y'all hear it. Trust me, I will have listened to this at least 4 times because that piece right there, that piece about being willing to honor that this may be a good thing, but it is not good for me. It
Mhm.
helps you honor your boundaries. And for so many folks, especially women, it's something about honoring boundaries that seems to be the most difficult thing in the world. We'll set a boundary and then just inch it a little bit and a little bit and a little bit until it's like there's no more boundary. The boundary is
Mhm.
gone. It is
Mhm.
a wide open 5-lane highway because you have decided that, oh, I'm going to be kind or I'm going to be nice. And it's like, well, what happens when you nice yourself into the hospital or you nice yourself into major health issues because you won't honor your own boundaries? And May, of course, is was mental health awareness month, and we all know, and and you literally just talked about it earlier, that stress kills, and it kills us because it affects our heart.
Yep.
And many times that stress, whether it's mental or physical, it comes from a lack of the willingness to not only set but keep boundaries.
Mhm.
So how would you suggest, or what are some of the ways in which we can get better at not just setting the boundary but also keeping it?
Yeah, I would say start small. It's difficult to say I'm gonna have these 10 boundaries in my life and I'm going to keep them all. I think success begets success. So pick two or three things that work for you, that free up time mentally for you to have a whole and complete thought. Like, have you ever gone through a day and you'd be like, I was trying to figure that out in the morning. It's the end of the day, and I never finished thinking about it. And oh my goodness, like that squirrel is crossing the street. It's like you just all of a sudden like are trying to think of everything at once because you're in this frantic pace, and often
Mhm.
we've forgotten where we were trying to go. So
Yep.
I just have some basic boundaries, and I would offer these to anybody. Number one, I am very clear about, my boundaries for work. I detest
Mm.
7 a.m. meetings. Like, it better be the CEO and it better be a crisis if you're trying to
Listen.
get me to be fully functional at 7 a.m. because my natural body wakes up at 7:30. And so sometimes you have to step away to find the natural cycle of when you
Yes.
wake up, when you are most productive, when you need to rest, so that
Yes.
you can always be at your best and say, you know what, I really don't work in the mornings. Now, conversely, I might be online at 8 o'clock at night. It because I still am in the zone and I may not have started until later in the day. So when you know that and you can create a life that allows for that, that's when you're going to optimally be at your best. The second thing I did was take the notifications for Outlook and Teams off of my phone. Now, seriously, people don't believe this at work, but if you emailed me, I don't know it until I choose to look at email because I took the notification off because
Yeah.
I have to manage me. See,
Yes.
I have to decide the hours I'm going to invest in that and then go do something else. Go for a walk, take care of myself personally, go do something I enjoy. And I think when you make those little tweaks in life to decide when you're going to be available. I'm not talking about quiet quitting or bare minimum Mondays or anything like that.
No.
Because honestly, most people I meet, most women in particular, are rock stars. Like, they want to get after it, they want to bring their best, they are
Yeah.
all in. But we get so burned out so quick because we have the faucet on full blast all the time. Like, we're constantly pouring out. And I have to say, sweetie, you can't pour out if you don't ever pour in. Like, you have to put something in if you
Yes.
want to effectively pour out. So find the little things first. And
Mm.
that's most important. And then I would say, decide when you're going to be off and then be off. Like, this is my year of fun, Alicia. It's like I was determined I was going to have a good time. I have taken a vacation day or two every month this year. It is sad to say.
Oh,
Like, I have been traveling. I have
no,
been
that's not
having
sad to
vacations.
say. That's excellent to hear.
It's just you're right, it's not sad to say, but see, I'm so accustomed to grouping my days together, so I'm like, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
off for 2 weeks. Don't call them like, no, I'm gonna be off next Friday, next Monday. 2 days will do you good. Like, if you feel like you're on the way down, just take you a couple of days, because it's rejuvenating when you take that
Yes.
time to just be, not do,
Yes.
but just be.
Listen. I don't know if you've ever heard of this affirmation music artist. Her name is Tony Jones. Oh
Mm,
my goodness, she is phenomenal. If you don't know her, she's an affirmation musical artist. In her first year of ever doing music, she had amassed, I think, over like 10,000 downloads. And one of the main phrases that excuse me, not 10,000, forgive me. Let me put some respect on her name. 10 million
wow.
downloads. Yes, without a big machine, without being signed to anyone. And one of the main phrases that she always says is, I am a human being, not a human doing.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. I gotta write
Yes.
that down so I can look it up.
I'm gonna send you her one of her, I guess, CDs, or we don't have CDs anymore. I'm dating myself. One of her links. I'm gonna send it to you. I'll send it to you via email. Y'all don't laugh at me. I look this young, but I'm a woman of a certain age. I'll send it to you via email so that you have it. But listening to her music is so refreshing and affirming. And like you're saying, this is your year of yes. Mine was last year because I had gotten so burnt out that I just quit the business. I should have sold it, but I was so burnt out that I couldn't fathom staying in it another day. And
Yeah.
that messed me up long term because the proceeds that I would have gotten from selling it would have made it much easier to build the next business. But I made my way harder because I was so burnt out, I couldn't function. So I threw the whole business away. And for about a year and a half, I traveled. I went to Singapore and Bali and Mexico like 5 different times.
Mhm.
I visited places that I had never imagined I would
Mhm.
visit. I went to Martha's Vineyard to play on the beaches, and I
Yep.
mean, doing all the things because I
Mhm.
needed to feel like, what does it look like for me to really love where I am and honor what I need when I need it? That whole self-care thing, and it's definitely another one of those buzzwords that we do hear often. But one of the things in my year of fun, for me, I said, I know traveling excites me.
Mhm.
So I know right now I'm not trying to be anybody's travel blogger, um, but how can I incorporate that version of self care into what my experience is? And for a lot of people, they feel like self care means I have to quiet quit or bare minimum Mondays. And it's like, but it doesn't mean that. So, how can we incorporate that self care professionally while also still maintaining excellence in our work? Because it's possible to do both. At least that's what I believe.
I believe so too. And let me just say this: if you feel like you have to quiet quit or bare minimum Monday, you're working at the wrong place. That's just the reality. I believe you should love what you do or do something different because
Mm,
life is too short to waste energy, your good energy on things that don't don't speak to your spirit, don't bring you joy, don't affirm your place in this world because you're using your gifts, skills, talents, and abilities. There are too many ways to make a living to stay at a job you hate. And so I'm just very practical about that. Because when you're at the right place, um, investing all that you have, you just move different. You know,
yes.
the key is to feel the drag and then step back to recalibrate because we all feel it, we just run past it. Like, in my first book I was talking about, when I finally stopped after burnout, all the things that I had run past and left unaddressed came slamming back into me. And so it took me a while to address the things that I had overlooked while also trying to rebuild my life. So I get where you were. But here's the thing, Alicia, about the other side of what you experienced in your year of fun. Yes, you could have sold your business and you would have had the money to invest in the future, but you retain the wisdom. You retain the experience. You retain
Mm,
the growth that came from that experience. And so the ramp up into this next thing carries with it all of that for a shorter acceleration. And so sometimes we shouldn't feel bad about just putting our feet on the sides of the treadmill and tapping out. Just saying, you know what?
mm,
I just need to stop. Because when you don't do that is when you get so um exhausted, so burned out that you end up in the hospital. This is
Mm,
why we know there is a link between chronic stress and heart disease, and chronic stress and a host of other physical conditions, because
yeah.
when we ignore what the body is saying to us, eventually we break down. And so I actually applaud you for stepping off, saying, you know what, y'all got it. I'm gonna step back. I'm gonna recalibrate. I'm gonna
Mhm.
go to new places. Let my mind be free to explore and dream, and then to step back out stronger, because um, that actually works, and it works well.
Does. It does. I came back and I was a better parent because I have a 13-year-old daughter, and
Hmm.
I grew up with her. I had her very, very young. At least I say young. I don't care what nobody say. To me, 23 is young. You don't know who you are. I felt like a baby having a baby.
Oh
And
yes.
she and I, we grew up together.
Mhm.
And so we've always been very, very open with each other. And so I told her, I was like, mommy is doing better at taking care of me. I do a whole lot to take care of you. She, what is it? Little black girl, award winning gymnast, speaks Mandarin. Has only known private schools, has literally traveled all over the world from Barcelona to Egypt to Scotland. Sis, life is lit.
I love it. That's
She has
awesome.
a pretty amazing life. I
Mhm.
wish I was my mama the way the way I am to her. But I also told her, "Have you ever noticed that sometimes mommy can be really mean?" And she was like, "Yeah, it just comes out of nowhere." I was like, "That's because those are the times in which I'm not honoring the fact that I have needs too, and I keep putting you and the job and everything else before me, and it is not your fault because it's not your issue. This is a me thing." So when I finally came back from that year of fun, and granted, I was still taking care of her during that time, but I was intentionally paying attention to what I needed. She was like, "Yeah, you are a lot nicer." I was like, "You see?" I was like, "This is why, as you grow and as more responsibility is placed on your head, always be clear and acknowledge what you need to feel whole and to feel healthy and to feel like you are safe in your body and that you're making decisions that don't go against what you know you need." Because many times people get real, real mean, and they don't mean to be mean, and they
Mhm.
don't mean to be short with you, and they don't mean to be nasty with you, but because they keep going against themselves, their whole spirit is like, "Oh, so you're not gonna listen? Oh, so you're not gonna listen? Oh, so you're not gonna listen?" And finally, things implode and glass balls drop.
Yeah. I love that you are sharing your journey with her, because it is a lesson. So often we want to be perfect and have it all together in front of our kids. And the more we can talk about things like, I need a mental health break, mommy's going to therapy, I need
Yeah,
a timeout, the more they feel permission to live their lives like that too. We
yeah.
destigmatize um, challenges around mental health.
Yeah.
And the more we can do that, the more people will give themselves permission to live whole and healthy lives. So kudos to you. I was a young mom too. It's a really funny thing to be in this season now and have a grandbaby that's 10 months old, because my experience with my son, I was 20, I was in college, was so different.
Mm,
Talking about young, I had never babysat in my life, just to level set for y'all. I never babysat. Here I am with a baby. My mom is leaving me at school and she starts crying, crying. Because
oh.
she said, "You don't know what you're doing." And I was like, "Oh, it's going to be okay." Like that was the words coming out of my mouth. And little me on the inside is like, "Stop it. You don't know what you're doing. Tell him to stay. Tell him to
Help.
stay." Because I was freaking out on the inside trying to be calm for my mom. And, after she left, I looked at my son and I said, "You know what? This will not be our life," because I was so conscious of being a statistic. And
Mm,
for probably 18 years of his life, I was trying to outlive the statistic that said that we were going
mm.
to be broke, that we were going to, live in poverty, that I wasn't going to finish college, that we weren't going to excel, because I wanted him to have all the things in life that he
Yeah.
deserved. And then it hit me after I had burned out, that I couldn't live for anybody else. I had to live for who Katrina was designed
Yep.
to be. I couldn't live up or down to anyone else's expectation, and it really set me free. It really did, because if you listen to how my son and I talk about his childhood now, I'm be like, yeah, I traveled and I missed some things. He's like, oh my God, I traveled all over the place when I was young. Like, I grew up with a sense of adventure. So all the things I would say that was wrong about my parenting are the things he loved. And I think
Yes.
sometimes we just have to step back and say, we are doing okay. We are doing the best we can. We are present. We are accounted for. It's okay to take care of me, even as I take care of them.
Absolutely. And two, it's that piece where we literally are our best worst critic. Like we
Hmm.
will say, like you said, that self-degradation where you were like, oh, I am the worst. I am this, I am that. My daughter was having an issue with two of her girlfriends, and they all got on a three-way call. And she's like, well, let me call my mom because my mom can help us through it. And it brought a tear to my eye because I'm like, she felt that she could trust me so much with their
Hmm.
issue that she would bring her friends along. And she's 13, and the 13-year-olds nowadays, they are a different bunch. They're a
Oh,
different group. And she the relationship that we've developed has been so much so to where I too was one of those, no, I'm going to prove that it will not be bad, because I was divorced very young and I grew up in a super Christian household. Divorce was not an option. Oh my
mhm,
goodness, God is going to kill you now. You're going to hell because you were supposed to stick with
mhm.
it. And I was like, this person is crazy. I got to go. I'm out. So I had all of these things in my head that, oh, I failed at all of this. And to see who she is now, and that she will call on me with her friends to say, oh no, my mommy can help us work through this issue. I was like, I am not doing half bad.
Exactly. You are doing incredible. And that is fantastic. You use the word I'm failing at this, and it's so funny. I've been asking myself and members of my team, like, what is your greatest failure this year? And people think I'm
Mm,
crazy for asking that, but I just fundamentally believe that we have to celebrate success and failure because they're all stepping stones on the journey.
mhm,
They're never people. Success and failure are events. They're moments in time, and each of them teaches us something more about ourselves and about what we're trying to achieve. And listen, the reality is, if you're not failing at something, you're just not living right. I mean, we just have to totally reorient it, because when you're trying new things, like you're living your life in ways that allow you to expand and grow and evolve, everything's not going to work. It's not supposed to work.
yeah.
But when you really understand that everything is here to teach you a lesson, the good stuff and the bad stuff, it helps you mentally accept the ups and downs, and that
Mhm,
that is part of managing chronic stress, because we'll never achieve a stress free life. Life itself is stressful. Like, as you said, no one could predict the pandemic. Like, that was
mhm,
highly stressful. People we love were passing away. um,
mhm,
but but if we manage stress in
mhm,
really practical ways, like practicing gratitude,
mhm.
cultivating selective ignorance, learning to manage our relationship with technology, we're much more equipped to manage it and not let it lead to burnout.
Oh, listen, first of all, I have been mentally noting where all the gyms are because I'm like, no, I have to stay in the zone. I will write it down later. But that gym there, whew, I'm sitting here so full. Like, I feel like I'm going to burst. I'm so full. This conversation is so affirming and mind altering. And I know this is supposed to be for y'all, but this is for me too. So y'all just enjoy the fact that we all getting this goodness together, especially too when you were talking about the shame that we have around things not being perfect, because for so many of us there is this deep, like seemingly impenetrable sense of shame around our collective inability to be perfect. Collectively, none of us can be perfect, but we all hold such shame around it. And when you wrote the book, Loving on Me, Lessons Learned on the Journey from Mess to Message, I wondered, what did your mess look like? And then what was your catalyst for change?
Oh my gosh, girl, I was tore up from the floor up. I it it starts with me having a panic attack.
Oh.
And in my arrogance, Alicia, I didn't think those were real. Like I did not understand what it felt like to have an attack and for your chest to get tight and my face to go numb and me feel like I'm about to pass out.
Mhm.
But it was from chronic stress, managed. And I like physically write about what that felt like and the journey back to me, back to the
Mhm.
divine being that God created, back to understanding who I am and not just what I'm here to do. And the fact that, I don't have to try to be perfect or in
Mhm.
control. I don't have to carry the facade that makes people think I am the professional woman, which comes from my shame of having my son out of wedlock and my concern
Mhm.
that people see me a certain way.
Yeah.
It is exhausting to hold up that facade and that mask. The truth
Yes.
is, we are all enough. We are enough as
Yes.
who we are. And we really accept that about ourselves. We just move different. And
Yes.
that's it kind of chronicles that journey. And it started out as a blog, and then all these other women would write in and say, hey, that's my story too, or oh my god, you really spoke to my spirit. And so it became a book, a practical
Mhm.
book about leaving a place that I loved, knowing when it was time to go, taking
Mhm.
that time out season, and then rebuilding my life. And that's it's a journey I've seen so many of us take. Um, but it's also something that comes back over and over again. Like I have to bring myself back to that place
Yeah.
because trying to define yourself by what you do is something the world challenges you to do over and over again. And every
Yep.
once in a while, I have to reset and just remind myself of who I am. Like,
That part.
yes. Like
Oh,
God's divine being. I like get so excited when I think about it. Um, and that's honestly why I love my work with American Heart too. Their holistic approach to health, the way they tie together the physical, the mental, the practical stuff. They teach you
yeah.
about meditation on the website, like all the things that we would have run past at one point, even in the
Yeah.
organization's evolution, is now just a part of how we show up, knowing that people need
Yeah.
more support than just take your blood pressure medicine, which is important, but it's
And
not more
also,
important.
exactly.
Yeah.
I like to say, and,
Mhm.
yes, do that, and also do this.
Yes.
Like, I want you to, because I'm a firm believer. Hey, 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 science is a thing. Let's not pretend like it doesn't exist or
It's
calm
real.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, I do believe in manifestation and visualization and all that. And I also believe that if you ignore certain sciences, you start to come up against things that you could have absolutely easily avoided had you, okay, if you eat this enough, this is going to be the result. If you
Yeah.
don't eat this enough, this is going to be the result. it
Mhm.
it matters, and it's a thing. And it's so funny, you were talking earlier about knowing who you are, knowing yourself, knowing that your natural body's rhythm is not awake until 7:30. I
Mhm.
started to chuckle on the inside because literally this morning, because I had to get to the airport super early and I am not a morning person. I got there about 10 minutes before my gate was supposed to open. Y'all judge your mother. I'm not a morning person. So I get to the gate, and or on my way in, in the Uber and all the things. I literally did a video, and I'm like, for all you early rising loving folks, how and why? Like, how do you do this? And why is it a thing
Mhm.
that folks, you just are so excited to be awake, and like awake where you're having meetings and you're being productive and all
Yeah.
this stuff? I just want to be laying in bed under some covers, finishing the dreams, this wide awakeness. And a lot of times, especially if you are in a high impact position, or you are in a high stress job, or you're an entrepreneur, you can feel really, really bad about not going with what is culturally or society, what society says is what you should be and do. And so, how do you, A, become comfortable with defining and just simply accepting that this is what works for me and this is how I'm going to curate and create my life around what works for me? But then how do you give yourself that grace when you don't hit the mark,
Yeah.
when you don't hit it?
Well, one of the things I try to practice is I'm present when I'm present. If I'm in a meeting with you, I'm
Mm,
listening to you. I'm not reading email. I'm not trying to do 5,000 other things. When I'm with my family, I'm with my family. I'm not trying to work and be with my family, because
yeah.
I think you can get more done in less time if you bring your whole self to the party. So it's a practice for me to be present when I'm present. Second, I have just learned to be me unapologetically. Okay. We think that we don't have latitude. We think that we can't establish boundaries. And it is to the benefit of the people around us to have us believe that. And so nobody is going to rescue you and say, okay, you got to establish boundaries. You have to bet on you. You have to believe that how you were divinely created is correct. If everybody was their most productive between 5:30 and 11:30, who would be working in the afternoon? Who would be present, excited to see you in the afternoon? Like, we all
Yeah.
have a role to play in the broader universe. And so we need to honor how we were designed. Yeah, I don't like to take meetings early in the morning, but I'm a morning person. I woke up, I'm grateful. I start with a cup of coffee. Like, I'm here. Like, I'm excited. I just want to talk to you that early. And that's okay.
That
Like, I want to
part.
spend time with me during that time. Whereas
Mhm.
other people, when I'm still full of energy at 8 o'clock at night, they're like, yeah, I'm in the bed. I'm like, cool, go to bed. That's you. One of us
Enjoy.
has. Yes. Like, just think about a hospital system. If everybody worked the morning shift, who would take care of patients in the afternoon, in the overnight hours? Who would be present
Mhm.
in the ER when the accident happens at 2 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah.
We get so locked into, what we feel like people think is the right choice because it's always been the choice, instead
Mhm.
of saying that it's a choice. Listen, we live according to the farmers work.
Mhm.
When we were in agrarian society, you got to get up at sunrise and work before the heat of the day. That
Yeah.
makes sense if you're a farmer. So for
Mm.
anybody listening who works on a farm, I totally get your life. But for other people who don't have to get up when the rooster crows, you
Yep.
have a little bit more latitude. You could choose
Mhm.
careers that allow you some flexibility. And a lot of companies are doing that now. Like,
Yeah.
you have a bit of wiggle room for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening to kind of be flexible in your time. Here's the thing, Alicia. If you really want to own your own boundaries and you want
Mhm.
to do some non-traditional things, you got to bring it when you bring it. Like, when I show up, I'm prepared, I'm present, I'm ready to roll. I don't
Yep.
get worried about if I don't know all the answers, because I don't know is like, I get so excited when I don't know something because I want to learn something
Yes.
new. So, like,
Mhm.
release yourself from all that stuff. Like, I feel bad because I don't know. No one knows everything. Be as prepared
Nobody.
as you can and be present. And then when you don't miss the mark, be unafraid to own those failures too and give
Mhm.
yourself grace. Because when you're honest about them, honestly, people will help you. People will give you
Absolutely.
grace, particularly when you've extended it to other folks. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Oof. When I tell you this conversation this is the icing on my week's cake. This has been so, so good. You said something too, make sure you bring it. One of my favorite quotes, and I have lots of favorite quotes, but one of them is a line by Aristotle: we are what we repeatedly do.
Hmm.
Excellence therefore is not an act but a habit. And my
Hmm.
mentor would always add to it, and there's always a seat at the table for excellence. When you can own fully who you are, when you lock in, you deliver what you're supposed to deliver. You make sure, if you're unclear, you seek clarity. If you don't know something, you bring on those who you know do know to assist you in ensuring that you still deliver what you're supposed to deliver on. I firmly believe there is a way to be exactly who you are and still operate in excellence.
Oh,
You
I
just have to figure out
completely
what that
agree.
is.
I completely agree. I try to live by the four agreements, one of which is always do your best. And it's
Yeah.
with the understanding that your best shows up differently based on what headspace you're in, which is
Yeah.
why it's always so important to get proper sleep, to get rest, to stay active, to take care of yourself. Because when you are in optimal health, your best is amazing. Like it is
Fire.
through the roof. Yes. And so I do believe you have to practice excellence as a habit. I believe that you can also be yourself. And I believe that excellence in itself opens doors and opportunities that are above and beyond anything you could have imagined. And listen, if your excellence is underappreciated, there is someone else who will. Like I just sometimes we have to remind ourselves that a lot of the choices we're making are options. They are it
Yes.
is an option. And when
It
it's
is
the
an
right
option.
option for you and you bring your whole self to it, it is going you'll operate in what I call the space, your space for greatness. You will feel it. You will just know you're in the zone. But if you're constantly struggling, going against the grain, um,
Mhm.
not affirmed, doing things that other people feel like you should do, but you don't want to do, or you don't feel like in your
Mhm.
own best interest, then you're living against your value set and you'll never have peace.
That part. And in the words of now everyone's grandma, pick somebody else to do it. Pick somebody else to do it. It's a no for me.
Mhm.
I love that. Listen, this conversation was so good. So many gems. I don't even know how I'm gonna pick the little best pieces to share because I mentally made notes of so many. But I just want to say thank you so much for sharing time and space and energy with me. You absolutely brought your entire best self to this conversation, and I look forward to sharing this because I know just like I am so full from this. I already know that every single one of our listeners will also be filled from this conversation. So, where can we stay connected? Where are some places that you want to make sure we visit to help us to continue to make choices that ensure that our lives feel as good as they look?
Well, I would first say thank you, Alicia, for creating this space for us, for giving this conversation amplification. It's so important that we understand our value and worth and that we make decisions that are in our own best interest. So I appreciate you letting me share just practical advice and tools. If you want to know more about health and well being, definitely go to heart.org. You can put virtually anything you're looking for in the search bar. We have meditations there. We have recipes there. We have well being there. We have videos to help you move more and do all the things necessary for you to live a whole and healthy life. That is my first and foremost prayer for you. And then I would also say last year we launched a podcast called Live Fierce, and its sole
Yeah.
purpose is to help you manage chronic stress. You know, there
Mhm.
are four key areas: finances, workplace, family, and health. And believe it or not, stress around health is dead last. We really are concerned about our finances, our workplace, and our families. And so we dig into some of those topics with really practical advice from experts in the field to just drop all kind of good nuggets I would want people to get.
Yes, that's actually how I discovered you from
Ah,
that podcast. Yes, that is where I connected with you um uh first before I had even met you, before I reached out. I was like, "Oh, this is good. Let me see who is behind this. I need to meet you." So no, it is doing what it is supposed to do.
yeah,
For
thank
sure.
you. I have a lot of fun. Like you, I love meeting people and learning from people. And
Mhm.
I think everybody has a unique genius. And so, to the extent that you can give voice to diverse voices that have lived experience that help the next person on the journey, I'm for it. That's really the premise that my books are written from. One is about life, the other is about career. They all have this undercurrent of self care being a necessity, not a nice to do, because I am super passionate that we move that from a buzzword to a way of being. And I just
Absolutely.
believe it's possible when we own the choices over our own life.
Amen to that. You guys should know you can absolutely stay connected with me all over Beyonce's internet at Alechia Reese. Remember, my mother got super excited. It is spelled Alechia, last name Reese, Reese. If you want to, you can absolutely come join us and come look for us to learn more about all the things we're doing at gotvaluenation.com. I am so grateful again for this conversation, and we look forward to seeing y'all next week. Bye. Thank you for joining us on the Got Value podcast. Remember, there is true value in purpose, and the greatest discovery of your life will be exactly what yours is. Stay connected with us at GotValueNation.com.